Hi guys, so I haven't actually done a response to my good friend Jeff Taylor for a long time, so I think it's now the moment. In this video, Jeff is talking about the SNP, so the Scottish National Party's plans post-Brexit. So let's hear what he had to say.
Just as the Brexit trade talks gear up to restart in Brussels today, with both sides saying they are engaging intensively, stories are emerging of a massive split between Holyrood and Westminster. On the one hand, we have Westminster claiming that Nicola Sturgeon's government is refusing to divulge their Brexit plans to the UK government. And on the other hand, we have the SNP claiming that they've sent lots of proposals over to London that have been ignored.
Okay, so Boris Johnson's government is saying one thing, and the SNP, Nicola Sturgeon's government, are saying something different.
The Express reports that Westminster officials say Scottish ministers had not given the UK government access to documents outlining how Scotland aims to prepare for the end of the Brexit transition period on December the 31st. These documents included information on how cash from the UK government to support Brexit readiness had been spent and how ministers at Holyrood were ensuring that businesses are ready for the change.
Now, that's an interesting question. So, of course, the government have sent money, or it seems the government have sent money to the Scottish government to prepare for Brexit, and they want to know how businesses are preparing for Brexit. Now, it's interesting because UK businesses generally have been complaining to Boris Johnson's government about not being able to get ready for Brexit because of the technical gymnastics they have to perform. So there are a number of different measures, different new systems that the government are rolling out at the moment. They're expecting businesses to be ready to use them, even though those systems themselves are not ready to be used. So it's interesting that the government are putting pressure on the UK government are putting pressure on the Scottish government to make sure that businesses are ready for Brexit. Does anyone see something of a trend here? You know, could it be that Boris Johnson's government want to blame the Scots if things don't work out well? You know, someone else to blame?
And it says that a Whitehall source said, "There are big gaps between both governments right now. We are becoming concerned at Edinburgh's approach. We should be working together on getting ready for the transition period."
Once again, this is the same type of rhetoric that was used with businesses. The government said we need to work with businesses to get ready for the end of the transition period. And businesses have responded by saying, we can't get ready because we don't have the mechanisms in place to get ready.
With another saying, "It seems more like political jokes at the moment from Edinburgh rather than engagement and teamwork." The Cabinet Minister Michael Gove has written to the Scottish Constitution Minister Michael Russell claiming that they'd not been asked to attend any Holyrood Brexit operational readiness meetings. In his letter, Gove said, "I appreciate that is your decision, but we still lack access to crucial data and have not had papers or other important planning materials shared with us. This includes information on how the funding the Scottish Government received to support readiness has been spent. How many environmental health officers are in place in local authorities, and how are you ensuring businesses are aware and taking action to prepare for change?" He also said that Nicola Sturgeon had failed to attend key Cabinet Brexit meetings and also that, "I note that despite this intensified engagement, UK government ministers and officials have not been invited to any operational readiness meetings of the Scottish Government." Whereas from the SNP government side, Michael Russell has branded these claims on Twitter as nonsense.
Okay, so this basically comes down to trust. Boris Johnson's government are saying, we have sent requests to the Scottish government asking for data. What have you done? How have you spent the money? Have you hired enough staff to deal with the life after Brexit? Have you prepared businesses? Are these businesses ready? All of this information. The Scottish government have responded by saying, no, this is all a pile of crap. We have engaged, or we have sent the documentation that they have requested. Now, once again, this comes down to trust. Who do you trust? Do you trust Boris Johnson's government, or do you trust Nicola Sturgeon's government? Now, you don't have to trust either government entirely, but I don't know, I would tend to trust Boris Johnson's government a bit less. Now, not only I, but I think also Jeff would trust Boris Johnson's government a bit less, because Boris's government have been criticised by Jeff himself in the past. He said he hasn't always trusted Boris Johnson's government when it comes to Brexit and negotiating Brexit. He said on numerous occasions how Boris may be perhaps throwing, and I'm paraphrasing here, throwing Brexiteers under a bus, signing something off with the Europeans behind closed doors, under the noses of Brexiteers. So I know Jeff doesn't completely trust Boris Johnson when it comes to Brexit. I don't know if he completely trusts the SNP either. I think he has a disagreement with them politically, but I'm not sure whether he believes what they say. But at the end of this, who do you trust? And even if you were to put all your trust in Boris Johnson's government, we know that businesses have been complaining in England, not Scottish businesses, let's leave that aside for a moment, but English businesses have been complaining that they don't have the materials ready. They haven't been able to properly prepare for Brexit. So perhaps what the SNP are saying may actually be true.
Now, we all understand that the SNP sees EU alignment as its most surefire way of eventually achieving their true aim of Scotland being an EU county.
Oh, Jeff, we were going so well, and then you had to throw in the typical Brexiteer rhetoric. I assume you also think that Ireland is an EU county. Maybe Germany is also an EU county. Sweden is an EU county. France, Italy. Are these all EU counties? They're not actually nations. They're not actually states. Which is quite ironic because Brexiteers will say, we love Europeans. We just hate the EU. You're basically saying that France and Germany are just counties.
Close, if not perfect alignment with the EU single market, together with all its goods, services and financial rules, would make Scotland slotting into the EU single market, customs union, Eurozone and Schengen area all the easier.
You're throwing in a lot of things here. So Schengen, for example, there's no requirement for independent Scotland to become part of Schengen. There's no actual requirement. I did a video on this recently about the euro. So you're building an argument that's not fully thought out. Sorry to say that, Jeff.
But that, of course, will be impossible if all Scottish rules are governed by the UK Internal Market Bill once it's enacted. So I would assume that the Scottish Government will be working extremely hard with its lawyers to see how they can split away from the UK internal market and stay aligned with Brussels. And
I'd love for Jeff to actually do a video on the Internal Market Bill from the Scottish perspective, because it seems to me that the Internal Market Bill is about taking away power that the Scottish Government have and handing it over to a government body, a UK government body, to deal with funding and other issues like that. So it's basically removing, devolution by the back door.
Further, that any dosh Westminster sends north of the border will be used to advance that SNP agenda.
Okay, so this is what I love about Brexiteers as well. So they say, we hate the Scots. We hate them. They're horrible people. They're always taking all our money. And then I turn around and I say, okay, well, wouldn't it be better that they weren't taking your money? They were I don't believe that they're taking your money, but they believe they're taking England's money. So wouldn't it be better off if Scotland became independent? Then you wouldn't have to pay for them anymore. And the response is, no, we don't want them to be independent. So you don't want to pay for them. I offer you a solution. They become independent. And your response is, no, we don't want them to be independent. Isn't it ironic how Brexiteers are so dead against Scotland leaving the Union, but at the same time they're so fully on board with the UK leaving the European Union?
So is it any wonder that the UK government has had no sight of the Scottish government's plans?
No sight? I don't know. You're trusting Boris Johnson here. Now, you on other occasions haven't trusted Boris Johnson. So suddenly you're starting to trust Boris Johnson when his government, when they say we haven't received any documentation. I said this at the beginning of this video. Boris Johnson likes to blame people. His government like to blame people. Anyone but themselves. So isn't it sort of convenient that we're getting close to the end of the transition period? We know Brexit is going to be disruptive. So wouldn't it be handy to say, oh, look, we were waiting for the Scots to send their reports. They didn't. Oh, now look at all this disaster that we have. Once again, this is speculation on my part. Boris Johnson has a history of shifting the blame to other people. The Tories have been doing it for ages. Why would you suddenly trust what they have to say, Jeff?
And the proposals put forward by an SNP government will always be talking about handing money and power over to Holyrood so that it can drive the wedge between Scotland and the rest of the UK in further. They've also probably advised Westminster to re-enter the EU as a full member, stay in the single market and customs.
How would Scotland, the SNP, be able to convince Westminster to rejoin the European Union? You seem to think that they have a huge amount of power in the UK. They have a lot of power in Scotland, but they have almost no power in Westminster. Is this an attempt by Brexiteers to play up, to exaggerate the power that Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP have in Westminster? Somehow that Boris Johnson is being held over a barrel by the SNP. This is a very strange way of thinking.
Union or extend the Brexit implementation period. Anyway, in his reply to Gove, Michael Russell said, "The extraordinary decision of Boris Johnson and Michael Gove to impose a disastrous hard Brexit in the middle of a global pandemic and economic recession shows they have total contempt for the people in Scotland. Everyone knows the Scottish Government, the Scottish Parliament and the people of Scotland have all been ignored by the Tories throughout the whole shambolic Brexit period, which is one reason there is now a clear majority for independence."
This is political speech, but
the Scottish Government has repeatedly put forward detailed evidence to the UK Government for a different approach to limit the damage of the appalling Brexit situation they have created, but we have been consistently rebuffed. But whatever the political spats involved, it'll be the ordinary people of Scotland who will be caught well and truly in the middle.
Oh, Jeff. So now you're worried about ordinary people. You didn't seem to care about ordinary people when you supported Brexit, when you voted for Brexit, when you've been promoting Brexit over the last number of years. Now you're suddenly concerned about poor people.
The UK as a whole will be leaving the implementation period at 11 p.m. on the 31st of December 2020. From that point forward, deal or no deal, our relationship with Brussels will change. And during that process, the best way for the SNP to help the people of Scotland is surely to work with Westminster and not against it.
I agree 100%. Now, this entire video is speculation that they haven't been working with the UK government. Once again, what one politician says means very little. We have to look at action. What have they been doing? What has Boris Johnson been doing? How has how has his government been preparing for the end of the transition period? We can see the evidence that it hasn't been going very well. So once again, this comes down to trust. Do you trust the SNP when they say that they have been working with Boris Johnson's government to mitigate the damage of Brexit? Or do you believe Boris Johnson's government when they say that Scotland haven't been doing anything? Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?